So it was 2020, and that seems to be kind of a common theme with a lot of people that I've met. That year kind of brought a lot of symptoms or things that people were struggling with, brought it to the surface. And so for me, the most prominent symptom was a hand tremor, and so the tremor started in my hand and kind of went all the way up my arm on my right side. And I kept just pushing it off and thinking, it was caffeine, it was too much coffee, or it was stress, or I just basically ignored it until it went down my right leg too. And and one day my mom stopped over, and she immediately, as soon as she stepped in the house, she saw that my arm was shaking, and she said, "What is going on?" And so I think it kind of took that, somebody not seeing me for a while and then seeing me and seeing that there was something really obviously different. And so I made an appointment with just a general practitioner, and I just in my head was like, I'm sure it's just stress. And so she kind of agreed with me, but she said, well, we should probably see a neurologist anyway. So a few months later, I saw a neurologist, and she had me like tap my fingers, tap my lap, tap my feet. And within, I mean, it felt like 5 minutes, she told me that she suspected I had young onset Parkinson's disease, which was really completely shocking to me. I mean, of course, I was Googling hand tremors constantly, and trying to differentiate between an essential tremor and a Parkinson's tremor, but I just thought I was too young, so I just discredited it. So I drove home from there just in shock, and she ordered a DAT scan for me, which was a couple months later, and that confirmed her what she suspected as it was an abnormal DAT scan. So yeah, 2020 of November is when I got my diagnosis. I feel fortunate in that it was a pretty quick diagnosis. I've heard a lot of other stories where, because the person was young, it just took, I mean, years for them to figure out. And even though there's nothing really fortunate about this diagnosis, I guess I feel like it's good it didn't take too long. So it really was, that clinical diagnosis was within minutes. And then, I didn't love the first couple neurologists I saw, but I think it was within 6 months that I found somebody that I really felt like was a good fit for me. Well, I felt like my life was shattered. It was really absolutely devastating. I felt like everything that I had planned for my life was no longer a reality, or something I could count on. And I think quick searches online just give a really harsh prognosis, and they're generally geared towards later onset Parkinson's or traditional Parkinson's disease, whereas, in time I've learned there's a huge difference between young onset. But initially, I was absolutely crushed and devastated. I mean, as broken as one could be. And during the pandemic too, it was just a lonely, I think everybody was dealing with kind of that isolated, lonely feeling. So broken and shattered, all those words were kind of where I was at for a good, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months or so. Well, let me go back to starting with kind of demographics or where I'm at. I'm 47 now. I was 43. Gosh, now I can't remember. It was 4 years ago. So 42, 43 is when I was diagnosed. I'm married. I've been married for 25 years. I have 4 children, ages 12, 13, 17, 19. Let's see, you asked maybe how that affected them. For my younger kids, I didn't really use the word Parkinson's as much because it wasn't as relevant. They didn't really know what that meant. For my older two, I had been using that word with my husband in conversation, so they were aware of that. So I did use that word and that diagnosis with them. I think my oldest was um, 16 or so at the time. And so he understood that the most and was probably physically looked the most affected by that. So I think together, it was a somber time. We had a lot of prayer in our family. My husband's a pastor. We're a very faith-filled house, and so we had a lot of time together, just kind of relying on God and praying together. And I didn't. I mean, I tried to not bawl in front of my kids, but they definitely could see that mom was sad and mom was affected by this. I'm a ceramic artist or a potter. I have a home studio. Yeah, working with my hands for sure. And so that requires some, you know, uh, I don't know, like patience and deliberate hand movements. And with tremors, it works. I don't know. It works maybe differently than some people would think. Where if I have a shaky hand, you'd think, well, how could you paint a straight line or something? But it's a resting tremor, so it's more like if my hand is sitting in my lap, it's going to tremor more. But definitely, there's internal tremors that we experience with Parkinson's too that can affect my work. Uh, so, I mean, I'm not. I'm not usually in front of a lot of people, so I don't have a ton of social stress or anxiety. With some occupations, I'm usually by myself in my studio, so I can deal with it there. Some of the, I guess, troubling situations kind of I put myself in is I just get too into my work and I don't want to stop and go upstairs, take my pill like I need to, and I'll just kind of power through it. But I didn't have to leave a job, or switch positions or anything because I'm self-employed. So that's just kind of how it affects me, is just my physical symptoms will sometimes affect me more than other times. I mean, I feel like my tremor is a barometer of how I'm feeling, and it bypasses even my awareness. I'm not really um, self-aware. I kind of just go with the flow, but I'll notice that, when I'm at church or when, I do speak, some public speaking, or if I'm even at a party or some kind of social engagement, I might not feel in my head like I'm nervous to be around people, but my tremor, I mean, will go crazy. So yeah, if I'm nervous, if I'm sad, if I'm telling an intense emotional story, all my symptoms, my voice will, kind of be hoarse. This hand will gesture wildly, and then this hand is kind of like stiff, or I'll be shaking. So yeah, all of that is like, it's up and down for sure, whether it's my on or off time with meds, or if it's social settings. That would be really cool to have all that monitored on a watch. Yeah, well, thankfully, I've always been very physically active. I've been a long distance runner my whole life. And so when I got this diagnosis and learned that, hey, there is a tool, in that we have access to that can slow progression, because initially you hear there's nothing you can do, things are only going to get worse. But then when you learn, like, well, intense exercise is beneficial, and it's proven to be beneficial in slowing progression, then I thought, hey, that's empowering, so I upped my game on running and working out. And so, and I love being outdoors. So, trail running that's kind of my thing, is running long distance, running through trails, being in the woods, being in nature. That's something very helpful for me. Yeah, and that's a nice question too, because I think a lot of people might not know about the non-motor symptoms, and I think probably the most heartbreaking, or maybe one I get most insecure about, is the facial masking, and that's just kind of the muscles in the face are just kind of more stiff, and so I mean, people ask often, like, "Are you mad?" Or "Why are you so mad?" Or "Can't you smile more?" And so I have to remember, to kind of, if I'm just resting, to try to make my face look like I'm happy to be there, because I usually am, like a very positive, content person, but my face might not always relay that. Uh, some other non-motor symptoms are that I struggle with is word finding. I mean, I'm doing pretty well right now, but a lot of times I pause and halter quite a bit in my speech. Uh, now I'll start doing that all the time now that I talk about it. What else? Just like short-term memory, I think I struggle with. Apathy is a big one that's frustrating, because that's something, like, you don't care that you don't care. But even though, like, I do care, but when I'm kind of in it, not aware, I can just kind of lose some of the ambition that I might have had before to have fun, or to do things with my kids, or to initiate. That's something I've really stopped doing, is initiating contact with friends, or like to go out and do things, and that's not me. I think it has affected that. I I am an extrovert, only that I get built up or energized being around people, but I'm also pretty quiet and shy, so it's kind of a, I don't know, unique mix of the two. But yeah, I found, I don't know, it's weird because I want people to know what I struggle with, but yet I also don't want to talk about it. Like, I don't wanna bring people down or make people feel sorry for me. So, I've found, talking about it with a few other people that I've met who have young onset Parkinson's is a great outlet, and then we know we're not bringing each other down, or, we're not gonna feel sorry for, we just get it. But yeah, with in social settings, I guess it can be hard because I might feel really anxious, and yet I don't want to make anyone else feel uncomfortable because I'm uncomfortable. Yeah, I guess the overall picture of why I've shared my story online, and why I would be totally willing to share it in an interview, is because the big picture is, uh, I want more awareness to this disease, and more awareness means that people understand it better, instead of, judging that person's shaky, or maybe that person's drunk, or maybe that person is totally doesn't care about anything. Bringing awareness helps people understand and have more compassion. But definitely for others who have this diagnosis, I think we have this choice between, being a victim and letting the disease kind of steal and rob the rest of your life, or choosing to be a victor. And that's what I'm choosing, and that's my hope, that if anything of comes of this, that I can encourage people that we have that power to take charge and become a victor through it. We have tools in our toolkit to fight this. We have positive mindset that we can take. We have exercise, and we can move our bodies, and all of that will help us, like, overcome. So that's why I would say yes to this, is possibly encouraging somebody else to kind of get out of that funk of, just feeling like life's over, because it's not. I think the first thing I noticed was just a real strong empathy for others, and an understanding that I couldn't have gotten any other way. You can listen to people's stories, or their hardships, and you can feel for them. But when you've gone through something really difficult, it brings you to another level of understanding and empathy, and that's a really beautiful thing that I'm thankful for. That I can share in understanding, and I can offer comfort, because I can say, maybe I haven't been exactly where they have been, but I have maybe been close, or in a similar situation. Another thing it's brought is just the kind of the awareness of the brevity of life, and that life is short, and it's a gift. So gratitude for really everything, the good and the bad, because I believe that, God will work good out of hardship, and that gratitude just brings a peace of mind and a positive mindset. Well, my husband is really supportive, and he knows me better than anyone, and so he's able to, kind of take me by the shoulders, and, kind of, if he notices I'm in some kind of funk, or I'm really anxious, he can very gently kind of help guide me out of it. Uh, I think another really great self-care tool I've learned is just the ability to say no to things, which maybe younger me in my 20s and 30s, I would easily overextend myself by just committing, or feeling like bad, or feeling guilty if I didn't do something. And I've learned that boundaries are healthy and normal and good and necessary. And so I don't really need to feel like I even need to explain myself sometimes. I can just say, no, I can't do that. Well, I remember in one of the forums, I think it was on Facebook, and it was some young onset Parkinson's, and, I had written right when I was diagnosed something about kind of like a cry for help. And out of the 50 comments, I think there was one that said, "It's not the worst thing in the world." And that comes back to me a lot, is like, it's not. There's a lot worse things that could happen. I could have gotten in a car crash yesterday and not be here today. Like, I'm still here. And so that's what I would tell somebody is it's not the end of the world. And there's a lot more to come.